Hi guys, and welcome back. This is Carolyn. In today's video, we will be painting cherry blossom trees using a reference picture. I'll be walking you through how to analyze the picture and break it down into smaller parts, which makes it easier to understand the basic forms of a tree. We will also be studying the shapes and shadows and how to sketch the tree trunks to make it look natural and realistic. We will also learn how to layer up using different shades of colors to bring in contrast and depth to the tree. So let's jump right into it. So when I first started off painting trees when I was just still a beginner, I struggled a lot with getting the shapes right and getting the shadows right. And I did a lot of studying on the reference photo. And basically for today, I'll be showing you what are my process and what are my steps to study a tree and how you may apply that when it comes to the actual painting. So I have chosen a few pictures from Unsplash, and we will use that as a guide in today's video on how we study the trees. And I'll be linking some of these photos in the links below, so do check it out if you like to download them. And let's look at our first reference photo. Here I have with me a cherry blossom tree since it's springtime, so why not get some pink trees? And how I start off by studying this is by looking at each of these bunch of trees. And if we look here closely, we can see that here we have one bunch over here. And this is the second bunch of trees. And then here we have another one. This will be the third. And we have a tiny branch sticking out here. We have one more here. And finally at the bottom we have this large bunch of trees. So in total, let's just group this as one for the ease of this tutorial. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So total 4 main bunch of trees and one tiny one. So let's put that into paper. And it's good to first study your reference photo and at the same time sketch it out so you have a better idea on what it looks like. So here we have one bunch here, and the second one would be here. And then we have the third bunch, and finally the last bunch, like this here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 bunch. So we know that the shape is almost like a rectangular. From the right, it goes wider down to the left side, like this. So then we have our separate bunches. And when we paint, it's good to know that we have one group over here, and then this would be the second group. And it's good to differentiate each bunch and treat them as a separate entity. Okay, and then next we look at the shape of this bunch. So to go in deeper, we can see that the shape is a bit like this. So specific shape. Here we have the ends coming out a little bit. And then here there's some gap here. So here we'll have a gap here and then connecting to the second bunch. And then here we have this coming out. This one would be like this. And then this is the third bunch coming out a little bit. Some flowers at the end here. Then here it comes out like this. So I'm gonna do it something like that. So this would be a gap here. And then for the last bunch, you can see some falling cherry blossoms. So this is just a very rough sketch that you can try doing to help you study how the tree falls down and how it bends in different direction to get that more natural feeling. So now that we have an idea of what the shape of each of these bunch look like, next we can go in to study more on the shadows of each bunch. From here we can see that we have the shadows around here for this area here. So we have shadows around here, and then here, some shadows here, because the light is coming from this direction, so the shadows will land on the right side, and then darker areas around here. And a little bit here, these are where the branches are, and you can see that it's darker at the bottom, and then here we have darker areas here, and then here as well, and below get some darker areas here, a little bit here. Alright, so these are, so when we start painting later, it's good to take note where the shadow lies. So the general rule is that it will be on, if the light is coming from the top left, shadows will fall on the bottom right. Okay, so this is the third step. And the fourth step, we'll be looking at the tree trunks. So let me just use a different color to draw out the tree trunks. And we have some main trunks coming out and some smaller branches. So we will look first at the main trunks. So here I have one coming out here, like this. So note that the tree trunks have their own shape. They are not straight but crooked, and sometimes a bit curvy, like this one here. That's a nice curve. And then there's one coming up here. And then this second huge trunk from the top. So it's good to get a sense on how the trunks connect with each other, so that when we paint, you can see a connection. Having these trunks will help to connect this separate bunch of flowers. And here we have one more here. So the trunks will generally fall on the shadow areas. We have some smaller ones here. So you can see that the trunks are branching out from here and going up and towards the left. Okay, once we establish the main tree trunks, now let's go in and fill in the smaller branches. So you can see here there's some smaller ones on top. And this area here is optional, up to you if you like to add them in, but just showing you how I interpret these branches. And then as you can see here, some branch sticking out. So I'm drawing them in broken lines. because some parts of it will be covered with the flowers, like here. And then we have a second one, like this. And some over here. Okay, you see this small branch is connecting to this larger branch, the larger trunk here. Some smaller ones here, and then this area here, this is coming from the third bunch. So here we have this trunk over here, like that, and then some coming out, and then like this. And then you can see how it connects to the main trunk here. So I have a bit of here, and how it connects. This one will be here. And then some smaller ones. As you can see, this is curving downwards, so naturally the branch would also curl this way. And here we have one here, and you can end it with some tiny branches sticking out. And if you look at the back, these are the tree trunks behind, so they would be thinner looking. So this would be in front, and then this would be the second tree behind, and the third tree. So the one closest to the viewer eyes would be the thickest. And then this would be the background of the road and some other trees here. Alright. And now we are done with the tree trunk. Next to study is to look at what are the colors that you like to use in this painting here. So you may choose to use this color. These are mainly pinks, but instead of having just one color, it would be more interesting to play around with a few other hues. But here, let's just look at the two main colors here. We can see that there are pinks, some white, some pinks, and for the darker areas here, they are looking more like umber brown to me. So for the flowers, we have pink and browns. And if we look closely here, we have some darker pink, or maybe we can use a red hue. And there are also some purples going on here. So we have pink, white, pink, brown, and a little bit of purple. So depends on your own personal style, your own personal preference. You may choose what colors to include. Some people doesn't like purple, so they will opt this out. Some like yellow. You can also add in some yellow to give it a bit of brightness and contrast. Alright, okay, so now we have determined the colors that we can play around with for the flowers. Just to give a rough guide of the shape of the trees, so I'll just lightly with my pencil shape out the trees. So similar to what we did earlier with the ones here. And then here I'm drawing out the tree trunks. So just a very brief one will do. And I recommend sketching this really lightly and then If it's too dark, just grab an eraser and gently dab off to make it lighter so it doesn't appear under the watercolor. So we have some pinks here. Let me mix in some pink. And then here I'm using a size 8 brush. What you can do is start off from the top. So the flowers on the outside, we can use smaller strokes. And then as we go deeper in, you can use bigger strokes. So I'll start off here with some. What I'm doing here is just using the tip of my brush and then drawing in like lines like this. So it goes in many different directions, from left, right, up, down. And then as I go in deeper in towards the right, I'm pressing in more on the belly of my brush, and you can see that these strokes get thicker. So here we leave lots of white spaces in between, and as it goes and gets more crowded towards the back, I'm leaving out less white spaces. And again towards the outside, I'm using tiny strokes again. Like this. So here will be our first bunch. And as you can see earlier, we determined where the shadows are. So I'm going in and adding a bit more pigment. While this is still wet, go in and drop in more colors, and you can see that it blends out nicely with the first layer. And then I'll add in a little brown. And I'll drop it in like this. So this will determine the shadows. Okay, and you can see there's some harsh edges forming here, so I'll just blend this off like that, and then keep going. So make this a little darker. Okay, so we have the first bunch done. Go on to do the second one. Same concept. Just make it really random. Don't need to think too much about it. The more you practice, the better you get at this. And then feel free to wash off the colors for a lighter shade. And then I'm going in with more pigments, less water. And then adding in the shadows. And make sure that when you proceed on to the second bunch, that the first is still wet enough so that we are able to connect both of these together, so it doesn't look like two separate bunch of trees. And a little bit of brown. So I know that I mentioned that there's purple and even yellow, but for the ease of this painting, if you are painting this for the first time, I recommend sticking to only 2 colors for now. Once you get better, you can feel free to add more colors. And then moving on to the third. So this part here, I'll just, with the tip of my brush, adding this in. And then leaving some gaps here, this is where we will draw in the tree trunks later. So I'll also list down these colors that I'm using here, but basically I'm using Alizarine Crimson for the red and Sepia for the brown. And now what we can do is to take a step back and look how the shape is going. So right now doesn't look too natural to me, so I'm going to change the shape a little bit, because right now it's going in a curved direction, but instead it should be going downwards this way, like the picture here. So I'm going to extend this out a little bit more. So at this stage it might look a little funny. That's because we haven't added in the tree trunk yet, but once that's in, the tree will look a lot better. So these are the ones hanging out. And again, not forgetting the shadows, we have some here underneath. So this, I will treat this as one small bunch, and the shadows will be underneath here, and then here another one. And yeah, this one I'm using is Alizarine Crimson from Winsor & Newton. Really like how this color turns out. So you can see right now the paper is dry. I'll try to just add more layers onto it. So the first layer will act as a base for a smooth layer, and then to bring more details when it's dry, you can add in small petals like this to bring out contrast in the painting. As you can see further out, I'm using smaller tip, smaller brush strokes, and towards the end with bigger brush strokes. So I'm adding these mainly closer to where the shadows are, and then you can see there's a harsh difference between the first layer and the second layer. So with a clean brush, dab off excess water, and then blend out the edges so you get a smooth transition between the two layers. So now I'm just adding more details to areas which I think would need more work. And then blending off the colors as we go. Okay, so now I think I am done with this. Let's go ahead and add in the tree trunks. I am going to use the same color as the trunk, which is sepia. And then following the reference photo, or you could look at our sketch, we will draw out this pink highlighted trunks. So you can see that here I have a gap that would allow me to place my trunk here. So the trunk is going to have a thicker, stronger color as compared to the petals. Giving it a bit of shape, making it look more natural. So giving it more of a natural shape, you can see it will be thin lines, and as it comes out, it gets thicker. And I'll have one coming up here, and then disappearing into the leaves, the petals behind. Here we have one trunk here. And then this one connects out here. So feel free to use the full range of your brush. For thinner branches, you may use just the tip of your brush, and then as you go down, press down towards the belly of your brush to get these thicker lines. From thin, and then go down, press down the belly, and there you get thicker lines like this. So this will help to create a more natural looking tree trunk. And then I'll draw in some thinner looking branches. So here these are all broken lines. They're not fully connected. The smaller branches will be painted just with the tip of your brush. And then I have some coming out here. And you can see this one connects to the branch over here. There's white space, so I'll add this in. And then another one here. So not to worry that it looks weird in this gap here. We will fill that in later. So just make sure to leave some gaps in between. When we are painting smaller branches like this, feel free to switch on to a smaller brush. But because my size 8 brush comes with a very sharp tip, so I am fine using this. So here feels a little empty. Let's add some branches here. And as you can see, I'm not randomly drawing in the trunks. I'm making sure that they connect to each of the tree trunks. And to give it a little more contrast, can darken the trunks on the bent areas here and the Y-shaped looking areas. This will give more character to the tree trunk. Like see another bend and another bend over here, just darkening these areas a little bit. And then if it's too harsh, these lines, with a clean brush, just blend it off. Okay, and I think we are done with this layer. And going on to our last layer. So we have these little gaps of broken lines from the tree trunk. Let's get back Alizarine Crimson and then fill in these gaps here. So I'm gonna do one here and one here. By doing so, it will make it look like these trees, these petals are covering the branch. And you can see that after adding this, it brings depth into the painting. So these petals here will stand up closer to the viewer's eye, and you can see that the background moves behind, further behind. And that's how you create depth for a tree, making it look more natural and realistic. By adding more textures, you also bring life to the tree, again giving it more character of its own. And try to be as spontaneous and as free as you can. It doesn't need to look exactly like the reference picture. And here we have a big gap. I'm going to fill that with more petals. And right now I'm just standing up and moving backwards and trying to see what it looks like from far. I'm pretty happy with how it's looking right now. So you can see after we added the tree trunk, it brings out the whole painting. So not to worry when you're at the stage where it looks funny and awkward. Just keep going. And there we have it. This is our cherry blossom tree. And this step right now is optional. It's up to you if you like to add a bit more playfulness into this painting. I think that it looks a bit dull. And I would like to add in a bit yellow. I'm not sure how this will turn out, but let's try out and see. So yeah, because my palette is full, make sure you use a clean area. Maybe I'll just wipe this area out. Okay, let's get a fresh paint of yellow. And then I'm just gonna drop this in a little here and there. So maybe more on the outside, because it doesn't really show through the reds here. A little bit like this yellow. This yellow will also help to depict some of the sunlight shining through, giving that bit of yellow. Maybe just a little bit in the darker shadow areas. Just a little here and there will do. And yep, that looks good. And for the finishing touch, I always love doing this. So add a bit of water, get this watery mixture, and then just tap it on your brush like so. And you get some really nice splatter from the trees. If you find hard doing this, just grab another brush and then tap it like this. If you add more water, you get bigger splatters. Let's also do a bit of the yellow. Try not to overdo this, but I think I'm having a bit too much of the splatters, but okay. And then I will wipe some off, because I think it's a bit too much. And that's all for the painting of this cherry blossom tree. And not to forget to always end with your signature. And there we have it. So I hope that you do give it a try and see how you go with it. If you'd like to share your paintings with me or like some feedback, do tag me on my Instagram and I would love to share your works. Otherwise, happy painting and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!